Welcome. In this video, what we will discuss is the topic related to your GS polity, and this is something which comes in under your GS paper 2. Apart from that, in your prelims examination also, if the polity is based more along the side of application, you might be seeing some of the questions from this particular topic. The topic is the bicameralism in India. What does it mean? What are the specific components of it in India? Why it is important? Why it is still prevalent? So we will discuss about all these things in this video. So let's start. Bicameralism is a practice of having two houses of parliament. So basically what does bicameralism means? Nothing but it is just that now you have two houses. When was it first introduced? So it's not like the Indian parliament is the one which, like, after the independence in 1947 we introduced the bicameralism. It already exists. Since when? Since the Government of India Act of 1919, which is like based on the Chelmsford reform. You must have heard of that. So in your modern Indian history, you must have heard of these names. These are the people who were associated with the reforms which were included under the Act of 1919 also. So Government of India Act of 1919 is the one which actually went ahead and provided that India will now have a bicameral legislature. Simply means that we will have Lok Sabha and we will have Rajya Sabha. So if you look at the parliament as of today, the parliament house have both of the houses. It has the Lok Sabha, or what is known as the lower house, and the Rajya Sabha, or the upper house. So if like there is also different color coding, like Rajya Sabha is red in color, you will see everything from the carpet itself, it's red. On the other hand, the Lok Sabha, it's green. So if you look at to the, like, if you have seen the live telecast, you would have noticed it. So these are the things, that is what exactly bicameralism means. But it is not that India only have bicameralism at the center level. It is also available in the state, but it's not like every state has both of the bodies. It is actually few of the states which have it. So at the state level, the equivalent of Lok Sabha is the Vidhan Sabha, or what we know as Legislative Assembly, and of the Rajya Sabha is the Vidhan Parishad Legislative Council. Now this is your homework. Go to your Lakshmikant. What you have to do? You have to also look into the features how Rajya Sabha has power compared to the Legislative Council, or comparison between Rajya Sabha and Vidhan Parishad. So this is something you must have known, that even by default there are still certain things for which Rajya Sabha is needed. Vidhan Sabha is considered as more of like a organization or a body which is not very much given much power under the polity of India. So these are the things you should go in the Lakshmikant very beautifully. It has very simply, it has been explained over there. Go ahead and check it out, the difference between the powers of Rajya Sabha and the Vidhan Parishad. For the scope of this video, what we have to understand, first of all, it was introduced by the Government of India Act of 1919, which means pre-independence. We had the Parliament, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha before the independence itself. That is something you should remember. Apart from that, as we have the bicameralism at the center, we also have the bicameralism at the state. Though the features differ, though the power of the Rajya Sabha versus the Vidhan Parishad is different, even the constitutionality of these are different. Like for an example, there is a provision that a state by passing a resolution could ask the center to abolish the Vidhan Parishad. No such what you can say article or nothing is mentioned about such a provision in the Constitution of India with regards to Rajya Sabha. So in that, go back in, like, at your leisure, read through Lakshmikant, and you will be able to get better answers for it. Now look, let's move forward and look into the what is the role of Rajya Sabha. Now you must have been hearing that lately it has been like many questions have been raised whether Rajya Sabha is needed at all or not. Why there is a Rajya Sabha? If nothing, it is actually coming in the way. So basically what happened, Lok Sabha is seen as directly representing the will of the people, or it is also called as the House of People. Why? Because you know the MPs of the Lok Sabha is directly elected through the general election. Like when you go into the general election every 5 years, whom you vote for the members of parliament who will go into the Lok Sabha. So it is seen that Lok Sabha is the one which is holding the democracy at the end. In fact, our constitution also says that the council of minister is responsible to the Lok Sabha only. So in that regard, it is like why Rajya Sabha is there. If nothing, it just make the procedure more lengthy, or they just stand in the way. There is like not much thing which is needed. So these kind of things has been talked about Rajya Sabha. It is countervailing function of upper house is rarely seen as legitimate. So basically, why Rajya Sabha come into picture? Why bill which could be passed by the majority in the Lok Sabha, why it has to be deliberated on in Rajya Sabha? It will take more time, which could have been done at the earliest time. So all these things are kind of feel like okay, Rajya Sabha is not needed, but it is considered important in a parliamentary system as a third of the seats are filled every 2 years, and it therefore acts as a check against potential impetuousness of electoral majority in the lower house. In fact, that is the major reason. That is the major reason that it is going to act as a body which will create some kind of checks and balances if there is a majoritarian government in the Lok Sabha. If there is a majoritarian government in the Lok Sabha, it could always have its way. It could really pass the bills whichever it wants. So in that case, Rajya Sabha actually comes as an option that it could at least put some stop where the discussion and deliberation could happen. So that is one of the reasons why Rajya Sabha is important. Also, another thing is it is a permanent house. So unlike the Lok Sabha which get dissolved after 5 years, the general election when it happens, Rajya Sabha is a permanent house. Also, it is also called as a representative of the state. So Rajya Sabha, as the term comes, it represents the interest of the state to the central government also. With members mostly indirectly elected, the upper house also ensured that the individuals who might not be cut out for the rough and tumble of the direct elections too are able to contribute to the legislative process. What do you mean by this particular topic? Now, this is important. We generally don't understand, but in Lok Sabha, you must have experienced it firsthand too, that the people who actually, the candidates who are fighting for the election, they need the backing of the party, or at least they need funding. And even after that, there are a lot of tussle involved in fighting an election. At times what happens, somebody who's like really very good at things, but he is somebody who has not went ahead and been very open with the conversation with the other like people, and in that case he might never be able to win an election from the direct election form. But over here, he is somebody who is learned, who has the experience, who know how to make a law. It's just that he's not a very public speaking person, let's just call it that. So in that case, this also provides such person an opportunity to have a way to participate in the legislative process. So these are the two important roles that has to be considered when we are talking about the role of Rajya Sabha. But there are also definitely problems, and that is why it is being considered that Rajya Sabha, which is the representative of states, what kind of a state representative it is, if it is allowing the members who have no connection with the state to represent it. So the practices like member representing states they have no affiliation to have been allowed to flourish and posing problem to the system. So this is something like this whole process or this whole convention where you allow somebody from the different state to represent that state beat the whole purpose, and it just reduce the credibility and legitimacy of the system. That is something which is there and which has been prevalent. So try to understand from the political perspective also, like if we in India we have major parties like BJP, Congress and all, so they would definitely want that their members get elected to the what is called as the Rajya Sabha, so that it becomes easier for them to get the majority there too. But what happened, they might not be having the state government over there, so they might not be able to suggest those candidates to the Rajya Sabha seat. In that case, they could just ask them to be like nominated from a state in which they also have the government. So such kind of political practices has what actually has undermined the role of Rajya Sabha. But as of today, as like from your UPSC perspective, from the polity perspective, you should not write blanket statements like Rajya Sabha is of no use, it is not legitimate, it stand in the way of Rajya Sabha doing its business, sorry, Lok Sabha doing its business. You should write more along the line of balanced answer where you are saying that Rajya Sabha, though it has problem, it is there for a reason, it is for check and balances. It is not like that only the majoritarian view is taken into consideration. So these are the things you should point it out. So what is the importance of bicameralism in that regard? So the very questioning of the monopoly of the lower house to represent the people makes bicameralism desirable, argues legal philosopher Jeremy Waldron. Now this is something how you should actually write in your answer. Like when you are writing your mains answer, in that case, instead of telling random statement, you can definitely quote philosophers like Stuart Mill, Jeremy Waldron, that these are the people who favored the idea of bicameralism. So it just gives your answer more substance. In India, the fact that Rajya Sabha membership is determined by the elections to state assembly lead to a different principle of representation, often allowing different factors to prevail than those in Rajya Sabha election. So Lok Sabha election. So this is the thing. Lok Sabha election is entire ball game altogether. The whole process of proportional representation, single transferable vote, indirect voting, voting from nomination from the state's government, all this make a different ball game altogether, and which will means that when the means of election is different, it will help in creating more venues for the people to come and represent India while robusting our democracy. John Stuart Mill had warned about a single assembly becoming despotic and overweening if released from the necessity of considering whether its act will be concurred in by another constituent authority. So John Stuart Mill, again a very important philosopher, you might be reading about him in your ethics as well. So what he used to say is that if there is no fear or no check from other constitutional authority, one body will become kind of impugn and they could become despotic from that reason. So it's kind of a check and balance feature of bicameralism which makes it very important. The other merit of bicameralism is significant in the Westminster system like India, where the lower house is dominated by the executive. What does it mean? Westminster type of system is what is in other word called as the parliamentary form of government. What does parliamentary form of government means? That we have council of ministers who are very much part of the legislatures, right? So the council of ministers, not like they are different people, they are the MPs only. So the council of ministers are very much involved, they are the executive and they are the legislator also. So you see the whole idea of separation of power in India is not very much followed because we have executives and the legislator almost at the same place. Though there is an independent judiciary, but executive and legislature are very much combined when you are talking about council of minister. So in that case, Rajya Sabha holds the potential of somewhat different legislative relationship to the executive, making a robust separation of powers possible. On the other hand, that is not the case with the Rajya Sabha. In Rajya Sabha, you do not have executives majority over there. So in that case, there the separation of power is more prominent. There the legislators are not the one who is going to execute it too. So the separation of power becomes more prominent. So these are the important points. So this becomes important from the perspective that when you are writing answers, keep these points in mind so that you will be able to write better answer. So I hope you have understood this video. If you have any doubt, feel free to drop a comment.